the sound was nothing compared to the explosion happening inside her chest as she stood frozen in the doorway, her hotel master keycard still warm in her trembling hand. There, tangled in the Egyptian cotton sheets she had personally arranged just hours ago, was Daniel. Her Daniel. The man who had promised her forever just last weekend. The man who had slipped a promise ring onto her finger and talked about their future children. The same man who was currently buried between the thighs of a woman Amanda recognized immediately. Sue Min. His executive assistant. The same woman who had smiled in her face at the company dinner last month and complimented her braids. Amanda. Daniel scrambled up, yanking the sheets to cover himself while Sue Min shrieked and dove for pillows. Baby, wait, I can explain. Explain. Amanda's voice came out surprisingly steady, even as her world crumbled around her. 3 years. 3 years of building a life with this man. 3 years of defending their relationship to everyone who doubted them. 3 years of believing she had finally found her person in this foreign city she had learned to call home. It's not what it looks like, Daniel said, actually having the audacity to stand up and reach for her. It's exactly what it looks like. Amanda stepped back, her hotel uniform suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. She was at work. This was the hotel where she had been promoted to assistant manager just 6 months ago. The same hotel where Daniel had specifically requested this suite for his business meeting. Now she understood why he had been so insistent. How long? She asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. Daniel's silence was answer enough. Sue Min had the decency to look ashamed, clutching the sheet to her chest. Amanda, I'm sorry, we never meant for you to find out this way. This way? Amanda laughed, and the sound was bitter enough to make both of them flinch. So there was a preferred method for discovering my boyfriend is a lying, cheating piece of garbage? Don't talk to her like that, Daniel snapped, and something in Amanda died right then. Not because of the words, but because of the instinctive protection in his voice. He had never used that tone for her. Not once in 3 years. How long, Daniel? He ran his hand through his disheveled hair. 8 months. The number hit her like a physical blow. 8 months. That meant it had started before the promise ring. Before the talks of marriage. Before he had convinced her to move into his apartment. I want you out of my apartment by tonight, Daniel said, and the coldness in his voice was something she had never heard before. It was like looking at a stranger. Since you clearly can't handle adult situations, I think it's best we end things now. Amanda stared at him. Your apartment? I pay half the rent. My name is on the lease. He shrugged, already dismissing her. I'll give you until midnight. Sue Min and I have dinner reservations. Sue Min actually smiled. Something shifted in Amanda's chest. The hurt was still there, overwhelming and suffocating, but beneath it, something else was rising. Something hot and dangerous that she had never felt before. Revenge. She didn't know how, and she didn't know when, but Daniel Kong would regret this moment for the rest of his miserable life. Fine, she said quietly, backing out of the room. Enjoy your dinner. The door clicked shut behind her, and Amanda allowed herself exactly 30 seconds to fall apart in the hallway. 30 seconds of silent tears streaming down her face. 30 seconds of clutching her chest and trying to remember how to breathe. Then she wiped her face, straightened her uniform, and walked to the service elevator with her head held high. She had work to finish. The Grand Hanwha Hotel was hosting its annual charity gala that evening, and as assistant manager, Amanda was responsible for ensuring everything ran smoothly. She threw herself into work with a vengeance, checking flower arrangements, confirming catering details, and briefing the staff on VIP protocols. It was easier this way. Easier to focus on table settings and champagne temperatures than the fact that her entire life had just imploded. Amanda. Her supervisor, Mr. Park, appeared at her elbow looking harried. We have a situation. The chairman's private room isn't ready, and he's arriving in 20 minutes. The chairman? Kong Jae-won. He owns this hotel. Well, he owns about half of Seoul if the rumors are true. Mr. Park lowered his voice. He's also extremely particular about his arrangements. If anything is out of place, heads will roll. Possibly literally. Amanda didn't have time to process the ominous warning. She grabbed her checklist and headed for the private dining room on the top floor, barking orders at housekeeping staff along the way. The room was chaos. Someone had ordered the wrong flowers. The temperature was 2 degrees too warm. The specific brand of whiskey the chairman preferred was missing from the bar. 20 minutes became 15. Amanda worked like a woman possessed, personally rearranging the centerpiece while directing staff with military precision. She was so focused on adjusting the orchid placement that she didn't hear the door open behind her. You have exactly 3 seconds to explain why you're touching my flowers. The voice was deep, authoritative, and cold enough to freeze the Seoul Han River in summer. Amanda spun around and felt her breath catch in her throat. The man standing in the doorway was devastating. There was no other word for it. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features that looked carved from marble. His black suit probably cost more than her annual salary, and his dark eyes held the kind of intensity that made her want to simultaneously run away and step closer. He was also clearly furious. I asked you a question. He stepped into the room, and the 2 staff members behind Amanda literally fled. She heard their footsteps disappearing down the hallway, leaving her alone with this terrifying stranger. The flowers were wilting on one side, Amanda said, refusing to let her voice shake. She had already been humiliated once today. She wouldn't allow it again. The arrangement was asymmetrical. I fixed it. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or curiosity. You fixed it. Yes. She gestured to the orchids. See for yourself. Unless you prefer substandard flower arrangements for your, whatever this is. A dangerous silence stretched between them. Amanda was suddenly very aware that she had just talked back to someone who apparently owned the hotel that employed her. Her supervisor's words echoed in her head. Heads will roll. Possibly literally. Then the man laughed. It transformed his entire face, softening the harsh angles and making him look almost human. You have fire, he said, stepping closer. That's rare in this hotel. Most employees can barely look me in the eye. Maybe you should be less intimidating. The words escaped before she could stop them, and Amanda wanted to slap herself. What was wrong with her today? First she caught her boyfriend cheating, now she was antagonizing the owner of her workplace. But the man just smiled, and something warm uncurled in Amanda's stomach. And who are you, brave little hotel worker? Amanda Thompson. Assistant manager. She lifted her chin. And I should be asking who you are, since you walked into a private room and immediately started making demands. Kong Jae-won. He extended his hand. I own this hotel. Amanda shook his hand, noting how his large palm completely engulfed hers. His grip was firm but not crushing, and he held on just a beat too long. I figured that out from the whole. She gestured around, terrifying authority thing. Terrifying. He raised an eyebrow, still not releasing her hand. You made 2 grown men flee in terror just by asking a question. And yet you're still here. I'm having a bad day. Amanda finally pulled her hand free. The fear response seems to be broken. Jae-won studied her for a long moment, his gaze traveling over her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle. What happened to your day? Personal issues. She turned back to the flowers, making one final adjustment. Nothing that would interest you. Your room is ready, Mr. Kong. I apologize for any inconvenience. She moved to leave, but his voice stopped her. Have dinner with me. Amanda froze. Slowly, she turned around. Excuse me. Dinner. He gestured to the elegantly set table. My meeting was cancelled, but I find myself wanting company. Your company, specifically. I'm working. I own the hotel. I can arrange for someone to cover your duties. This was insane. This entire day was insane. This morning, she had woken up next to Daniel, blissfully ignorant of his betrayal. Now she was standing in a private dining room with a devastatingly handsome stranger who apparently had the power to restructure her entire shift with a single phone call. Why? The question came out before she could stop it. Jae-won tilted his head, considering. Because you're the first person in years who hasn't bowed and scraped when I entered a room. Because you fixed my flowers without being asked and then defended your actions without apology. Because, he paused, something shifting in his expression, you look like someone who needs a good meal and perhaps a listening ear. The kindness in his voice, unexpected and genuine, nearly broke her. Amanda felt tears prick at her eyes and furiously blinked them back. One dinner, she heard herself say. But I picked the whiskey. His smile was slow and devastating. Deal. Now, if you're enjoying this story so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next because this story is about to take some wild turns you won't see coming. Dinner with Kang Jae-won was unlike anything Amanda had ever experienced. He was charming, attentive, and surprisingly easy to talk to once the initial intimidation faded. He asked about her life in Seoul, how a woman from Atlanta had ended up working in a luxury hotel halfway across the world. I came for a semester abroad during college, she explained, swirling the wine in her glass. Fell in love with the culture, the food, the energy of the city. When I graduated, I applied for jobs here on a whim. The Grand Hanwha was the only place that responded. And you've been here ever since. 6 years now. She smiled, though it felt fragile. Seoul is home. What about family? My mother passed when I was young. My father remarried and started a new family. We're not close. She shrugged, trying to make it sound like it didn't still hurt after all these years. I have an aunt in Atlanta who checks in sometimes, but mostly it's just me. That sounds lonely. Sometimes. She met his gaze directly. But I've built a life here. Friends. A career. She almost said, relationship, but the word stuck in her throat. The personal issues from earlier, Jae-won said carefully. A man. Amanda laughed bitterly. Is it that obvious? You have the look of someone whose heart has been recently crushed. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. I've seen it before. Hell, I've caused it before. I'm not proud of that. At least you're honest. What did he do? Something about the quiet intensity of his question made her want to spill everything. So she did. She told him about Daniel, about the 3 years, about the promise ring and the apartment and the future they had planned. She told him about walking into the presidential suite and finding him with Soo-min. She told him about being kicked out of her own home with just hours to find somewhere else to go. By the time she finished, Jae-won's expression had gone terrifyingly blank. What is his full name? The question was asked calmly, but there was something beneath it that made Amanda shiver. Daniel Kang. He works for, she stopped, suddenly making a connection she should have made hours ago. Wait. Kang. He works for Kang Industries. His uncle is some big shot executive who got him the job. Jae-won was very, very still. His uncle, he repeated slowly, who works at Kang Industries. Yeah, Daniel talks about him all the time. Says his uncle basically runs the company even though he's never in the office. Always off doing business, apparently. Amanda rolled her eyes. He probably made up half of it to seem important. A muscle ticked in Jae-won's jaw. Daniel Kang, he said, almost to himself. Kang Dae-ho's son. Amanda blinked. You know him? Daniel is my nephew. The words landed like bombs. Amanda stared at him, her brain struggling to process this impossible coincidence. The man she had been pouring her heart out to. The man who owned the hotel where she worked. The man who was currently looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He was Daniel's uncle. The same uncle Daniel had always talked about with a mixture of reverence and fear. Oh my God. Amanda pushed back from the table. I should go. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Sit down. It wasn't a request. There was steel in his voice now, and Amanda found herself obeying before her brain caught up with her body. Daniel is my brother's son, J1 said quietly. I love my brother, but I have never liked Daniel. He's spoiled, entitled, and cruel. This is simply further evidence of his true character. His dark eyes found hers. You have nothing to apologize for. He's your family. He is blood. J1's voice was cold. That is not the same thing. They stared at each other across the table, and Amanda felt something shift between them. Something dangerous. Something that felt like the beginning of a very bad idea. You want revenge, J1 said. It wasn't a question. What? I saw it in your eyes earlier. Beneath the hurt and the humiliation, there was anger. Rage, even. You want Daniel to suffer for what he did. Amanda should have denied it. Should have played the mature adult and claimed she was above such petty feelings. But she was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of being the bigger person. Yes, she said quietly. I do. J1 smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made her pulse race for all the wrong reasons. Then I have a proposition for you. I'm almost afraid to ask. Marry me. Amanda choked on her wine. Excuse me. Marry me, he repeated calmly, as if he hadn't just proposed to a woman he had met 3 hours ago. Think about it. What would hurt Daniel more than learning that the woman he discarded married his uncle? The same uncle he has spent his entire life trying to impress. That's insane. Is it? J1 leaned forward. You need somewhere to live. I have properties sitting empty across the city. You want to hurt Daniel. Becoming his aunt would accomplish that rather effectively. And he paused, something flickering in his expression, I have my own reasons for needing a wife. What reasons? Business reasons. Political reasons. Reasons I would rather not explain right now. He held up a hand when she started to protest. I'm not asking for a real marriage. Just an arrangement. A contract. We play the happy couple for a year, make Daniel's life miserable in the process, and then we quietly divorce and go our separate ways. It was crazy. It was absolutely, completely, totally crazy. But God, the image of Daniel's face when he found out. I need time to think, Amanda said. Take all the time you need. J1 pulled out a black card and slid it across the table. This is my personal number. Call me when you've made your decision. The gala was winding down by the time Amanda returned to the main floor. She moved through her duties on autopilot, her mind racing with impossibilities. Marry a stranger for revenge. It sounded like something out of one of those dramas she watched late at night. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. You have 2 hours to get your stuff. Sue Min is moving in tomorrow. Amanda stared at the message, feeling the last remnants of hurt transform into cold, crystalline fury. 2 hours. After 3 years, he was giving her 2 hours to erase her entire life from his apartment. She pulled out J1's card. Her fingers hovered over her phone for a long moment. This was insane. This was the definition of a terrible decision. She should find a hotel room, cry herself to sleep, and start rebuilding her life in the morning like a normal person. But Amanda was tired of being normal. Tired of being the understanding girlfriend, the perfect employee, the woman who always took the high road. She dialed the number. That was faster than expected. Jae-won answered on the first ring. "I have conditions," she said. "I'm listening. I want a real wedding. Something big and public and impossible to ignore. I want Daniel to see it everywhere he looks. Done. I want to keep my job. I worked hard for my position, and I'm not giving it up. I would never ask you to. And I want." She hesitated, suddenly aware of how petty she was about to sound. "I want Soo-min to be invited." Jae-won laughed, low and approving. "You have a cruel streak. I like it. Is that a yes?" "That's a yes. I'll send a car to your location in an hour. We have much to discuss, Mrs. Kong." The name sent a shiver down her spine. "I haven't said yes yet. But you will." She could hear the smile in his voice. "You already know you will." He was right. She hated that he was right. "1 hour," she said, and hung up. "Okay, let's pause here for a moment. If you're still watching, I need you to drop a comment below and let me know what you think about Amanda's decision. Is she making a huge mistake, or is this exactly what Daniel deserves? Also, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell because this story is about to get even crazier. The next few weeks passed in a blur of contracts, dress fittings, and increasingly elaborate wedding preparations. True to his word, Jae-won had provided her with an apartment in one of Seoul's most exclusive neighborhoods. He had also assigned her a personal assistant named Min-ji, a frighteningly efficient woman who seemed to anticipate Amanda's needs before she even knew what they were. "The wedding invitations have been sent," Min-ji reported one morning, handing Amanda a cup of coffee with exactly the right amount of cream. "Including the ones to Mr. Daniel Kong and Mississippi Park Soo-min. Did they RSVP?" Min-ji smiled thinly. Mississippi Park accepted immediately. Mr. Kong attempted to call Mr. Jae-won directly. He was not available. Amanda imagined Daniel's face when he received the invitation and felt a warm glow of satisfaction. The invitation had been deliberately designed to maximize impact. Heavy cream cardstock. Gold embossing. A formal announcement of the upcoming nuptials between Kang Jae-won and Amanda Thompson. She wished she could have been there when he opened it. "There's something else," Min-ji said, her expression becoming more serious. "Mr. Kong wanted me to inform you that there are certain aspects of his life that you should be aware of before the wedding." "What aspects?" Min-ji hesitated, which was unusual for her. Perhaps it would be better if he explained himself. "He's requested your presence at the Vanguard Club tonight. 8 o'clock. He says to dress formally." That evening, Amanda found herself being driven to a part of Seoul she had never visited. The streets grew quieter, the buildings more industrial, until they finally stopped in front of an unmarked door guarded by 2 men in dark suits. The men nodded at her driver and stepped aside without a word. Inside, the Vanguard Club was nothing like Amanda expected. The decor was sophisticated, all dark woods and crystal chandeliers, but there was an undercurrent of something else. Something dangerous. The men scattered throughout the space had the look of soldiers, and more than a few of them openly carried weapons. Jae-won was waiting for her at a private table in the back. He rose as she approached, and for a moment, she saw him differently. Not as the charming hotel owner, but as something else entirely. A man accustomed to violence. A man who commanded fear. "You're wondering what this place is," he said, pulling out her chair. "Among other things. This is where I conduct my real business." He sat across from her, his expression unreadable. "The hotel, the legitimate companies, those are fronts. Useful ones, but fronts nonetheless." Amanda's heart began to pound. "What are you saying?" "I'm the head of the Kong family," Jae-won said simply. "We are what polite society calls organized crime and what everyone else calls the Korean Mafia." The words hung in the air between them. Amanda felt the blood drain from her face. You're a criminal, yes. A dangerous man, certainly. His dark eyes held hers steadily. I wanted you to know before the wedding. If you want to end our arrangement, I'll understand. But I needed you to have the full picture. Why didn't you tell me before? Would you have agreed to marry me if I had? It was a fair point. Even now, Amanda's first instinct was to run. To get as far away from this man and his world as possible. But she stayed in her seat, studying him. Are you going to hurt me? She asked quietly. Something shifted in Jaewon's expression. Never. Would you hurt Daniel? A long pause. Do you want me to? The question should have horrified her. The old Amanda, the one who existed before the cheating and the humiliation, would have immediately said no. Violence was never the answer. Two wrongs didn't make a right. But the new Amanda, the one forged in the fire of Daniel's betrayal, found herself hesitating. No, she finally said. Hurting him would be too easy. I want him to watch me thrive. I want him to see me living my best life as his uncle's wife and know that he threw away someone incredible. Jaewon smiled slowly. That might be the most attractive thing anyone has ever said to me. Despite everything, Amanda laughed. You're a strange man, Kong Jaewon. And you're a strange woman, soon to be Kong Amanda. He reached across the table and took her hand. But I think we might just work. The wedding was everything Amanda had demanded and more. Jaewon had spared no expense, transforming the Grand Hanwha's ballroom into a winter wonderland of white roses and cascading crystals. The guest list included some of Seoul's most powerful figures, along with a carefully curated selection of people designed to witness Daniel's humiliation. Daniel arrived with Soo Min on his arm, his expression oscillating between fury and disbelief. He had tried everything to stop the wedding, calls to his father, threats to Amanda, even an attempt to crash the rehearsal dinner. But Jaewon's security was impenetrable, and Daniel had been firmly turned away at every opportunity. Now he stood in the back of the ballroom, watching as his uncle's bride walked down the aisle in a gown that cost more than his annual salary. Amanda had never felt more beautiful or more powerful. The dress was a custom creation, all delicate lace and subtle sparkle, designed to complement her brown skin and natural hair, which had been styled into an elaborate updo adorned with tiny crystals. But it was Jaewon's expression as she approached that made her breath catch. He was looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Like she was someone worth protecting, worth cherishing, worth fighting for. It was an act, she reminded herself. Just part of their arrangement. But standing before him at the altar, their hands joined as they exchanged vows, Amanda felt something stirring in her chest that had nothing to do with revenge. You may kiss the bride. Jaewon's hand came up to cup her face, his touch impossibly gentle for a man she now knew was capable of tremendous violence. When his lips met hers, the kiss was soft and sweet and over far too quickly. But it left Amanda's heart racing all the same. The reception was a blur of champagne toasts and congratulations from people whose names she couldn't remember. Through it all, Amanda was acutely aware of Daniel's eyes following her every move. It was almost midnight when he finally cornered her. We need to talk. Amanda turned to find Daniel blocking her path to the ladies' room. Up close, she could see the toll the evening had taken on him. His face was flushed from too much alcohol, and there was a desperate gleam in his eyes. I don't think we have anything to say to each other, she said coolly. This is insane, Amanda. Marrying my uncle. What the hell are you trying to prove? I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm simply living my life. He's using you. Daniel grabbed her arm, his grip too tight. You don't know who he really is. You don't know what he's capable of. Let go of my wife. Jaewon's voice cut through the noise of the reception like a blade. He materialized at Amanda's side, his expression thunderous, and Daniel immediately released her arm. Uncle, I was just. I know exactly what you were doing. Jae-won stepped between them, his body shielding Amanda. You were harassing my wife on our wedding day. After everything you did to her, you still believe you have the right to touch her? She was mine first. The words were petulant, childish, and they made Amanda realize something she should have understood long ago. Daniel had never seen her as a partner. He had seen her as a possession. Something to be owned and discarded at will. I was never yours, she said, stepping around Jae-won to face Daniel directly. I was a woman who loved you, and you threw that away. Now I'm a woman who doesn't. Learn to live with it. Daniel's face contorted with rage. You'll regret this. Both of you will regret this. Is that a threat? Jae-won's voice was dangerously soft. Because if you're threatening my wife, Daniel, there will be consequences. The kind of consequences that your father's protection cannot save you from. For a moment, Amanda saw real fear flicker across Daniel's face. He glanced between them, then turned and stormed away, grabbing Soo-min's hand and dragging her toward the exit. Are you all right? Jae-won asked, turning to examine her arm where Daniel had grabbed her. I'm fine. She looked up at him, this dangerous stranger who was now her husband. Thank you. You don't need to thank me for protecting what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it sent a warm shiver down her spine. I'm not yours, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Jae-won smiled, and it was the slow, predatory smile of a man who knew exactly what he wanted. Not yet, he agreed. But the night is young. The honeymoon suite was magnificent. Roses everywhere, champagne chilling on ice, a bed that could have accommodated a small army. Amanda stood in the center of it all, suddenly very aware that she was alone with her husband for the first time since they'd made this arrangement. We should establish boundaries, she said, her voice slightly higher than usual. Jae-won was loosening his tie by the window, and the casual gesture was somehow more intimate than anything that had happened during the ceremony. What kind of boundaries? Physical ones. She gestured between them. This is a business arrangement. I don't expect. I mean, we don't have to. You don't have to sleep with me, he finished calmly. I know. I would never force you into anything. Good. That's good. However. He set down his tie and crossed the room toward her, each step measured and deliberate. I should be honest with you about something. What? He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne and feel the heat radiating from his body. I find myself increasingly attracted to you, Amanda. More than I expected when I proposed this arrangement. More than I've been attracted to anyone in a very long time. Amanda's breath caught in her throat. Jae-won. I won't act on it without your consent. You have my word. His hand came up to brush a stray curl from her face, and she found herself leaning into his touch. But I wanted you to know. Full honesty, remember? She looked into his dark eyes and saw the same hunger she was beginning to feel herself. This man was dangerous in every possible way. A criminal, a killer, a wolf in designer clothing. But God help her, she wanted him anyway. We shouldn't, she whispered. No, he agreed. We probably shouldn't. Neither of them moved. One kiss, she finally said. A real one. Not like the one at the altar. Just one. Just one. To get it out of our systems. Jae-won smiled, and it was the smile of a man who knew exactly what she was doing. But he didn't call her out. Instead, he cupped her face in both hands and lowered his mouth to hers. This kiss was nothing like the first. It was fire and hunger and 3 years of frustration unleashed. His hands tangled in her hair, heedless of the carefully arranged crystals. Her fingers gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing heavily. That was more than one kiss, she managed. You didn't seem to be complaining. No, she hadn't been. And when he kissed her again, she didn't complain either. The first few months of marriage were a revelation. J1, for all his danger and darkness, was surprisingly attentive as a husband. He remembered her coffee order. He asked about her day. He watched terrible American reality shows with her without complaint and pretended not to notice when she cried during the emotional moments. And physically, well. Amanda had never known her body could feel the things J1 made it feel. He approached intimacy with the same intensity he brought to everything else, focused and thorough and devastatingly skilled. She was falling for him. She knew it, and it terrified her. "You're quiet tonight," J1 observed one evening as they sat in his study. He was reviewing documents that Amanda had learned not to ask about, while she pretended to read a novel. "Just thinking." About? "About how strange this is." She set down her book. "6 months ago, I was crying in a hallway because my boyfriend cheated on me. Now I'm married to a mafia boss and living a life I never could have imagined. Do you regret it?" She considered the question honestly. "No. I don't. Which is strange, isn't it? I should regret it. I should be planning my escape. Instead, I'm—" She trailed off, uncertain how to finish. "You're what?" "Happy," she admitted quietly. "I'm actually happy." J1 set down his documents and crossed the room to kneel before her chair. It was such an unexpected gesture that Amanda's heart squeezed painfully. "I want you to be happy," he said. "I didn't expect that when we started this. I thought I was gaining a useful partner in a mutually beneficial arrangement. Instead, I've found—" He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "I found someone who matters to me. More than I ever intended. J1. I know we agreed to divorce after a year. I want you to know that I would never hold you to that agreement if you want to leave. But I also want you to know that if you choose to stay." He took her hands in his. "I would consider it an honor. Is this your way of saying you love me?" He smiled, and it was the softest expression she had ever seen on his face. "I am not a man who uses such words easily. But yes. I believe I love you, Amanda. Against all logic and expectation, I love you." She should take time to think. She should consider the implications of building a real life with this man, in this world. She should remember that their entire relationship began with revenge. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "Even though you're impossible. Even though this is crazy. I love you." The next few months should have been blissful. And in many ways, they were. Amanda settled into her role as J1's wife with surprising ease, dividing her time between her work at the hotel and learning the complexities of his world. But happiness, as Amanda was learning, made powerful men into targets. It started with small things. A car following her home from work. Anonymous notes left at her desk. Whispered threats from strangers in crowds. J1 immediately doubled her security detail, but the messages kept coming. "You took what was mine. Now I'll take what's yours. Who is doing this?" Amanda demanded one night, after finding yet another note in her coat pocket. "You know, don't you?" J1's expression was grim. "There's a rival family. The Lees. We've been at war with them for decades. They've been looking for a way to strike at me, and now—" He looked at her with haunted eyes. "Now they've found one. What are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes to protect you." The attack came a week later. Amanda was leaving the hotel after a late shift, walking toward her car with her bodyguard close behind. She didn't notice the black van until it was almost too late. The screech of tires. A door sliding open. Hands reaching for her. Her bodyguard moved fast, but not fast enough. Someone had shot him. She could hear him screaming as other hands grabbed her, dragging her toward the van. "Let me go." She fought with everything she had. Scratching, biting, kicking. But there were too many of them, and they were too strong. Then the world exploded into gunfire. Amanda hit the ground hard, her ears ringing. When she looked up, she saw J1 standing over her, his face a mask of cold fury. Behind him, her attackers lay in various states of dead or dying. "Are you hurt?" He pulled her up, his hands running over her body, checking for injuries. "I'm fine." She was shaking. "I'm fine. But your guard, he's being taken care of." J1 pulled her into a crushing embrace. "I almost lost you. God, Amanda, I almost lost you. But you didn't." She buried her face in his chest. "You saved me. I will always save you." He pulled back to look at her face, and his expression was terrifying in its intensity. "The Lees want a war. They have one. No one threatens what's mine and lives." The war that followed was brutal and swift. Amanda heard bits and pieces, strategic strikes, dismantled operations, key members disappearing. Through it all, J1 remained by her side, equal parts loving husband and ruthless crime lord. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt something she never expected. Protected. Loved. Safe. It was Daniel who finally brought everything to a head. Amanda had almost forgotten about him, so wrapped up was she in her new life. But Daniel had not forgotten about her. He had been watching, waiting, growing angrier with each passing day. "You ruined my life," he spat when he finally cornered her again, this time in the hotel parking garage. "Everything I had, everything I'd worked for, gone because of you." Amanda looked at this man she had once loved and felt nothing but pity. "You ruined your own life, Daniel. I just stopped letting you ruin mine. If I can't have you," he raised his hand, and Amanda saw the glint of a blade. This time, she was ready. She dodged the first strike, using the self-defense moves J1 had insisted she learn. When Daniel lunged again, she grabbed his wrist and twisted, sending the knife clattering to the ground. "It's over, Daniel." She kept her voice steady even as her heart pounded. "You need to move on. It's not over." He was crying now, ugly, angry tears. "I loved you. I still love you. You don't know what love is." She stepped back as security swarmed the garage, alerted by the cameras J1 had installed everywhere. Love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't threaten. Love doesn't try to destroy someone for moving on. Daniel was still screaming as they dragged him away. That night, J1 held her for hours, whispering promises of protection and devotion. And when morning came, Amanda made a decision. "I want to stay," she said over breakfast. "Not because of the arrangement. Not because of revenge. But because this is where I belong. You're where I belong." J1's smile lit up his entire face. "Then stay forever." "Forever is a long time. Not long enough." He pulled her close. "Not nearly long enough." The epilogue of their story played out over years, not months. Amanda eventually became J1's true partner, not just in marriage but in business. She brought legitimacy to his operations, helping him transition from pure organized crime to more respectable ventures. Daniel, after his arrest for assault and attempted murder, was quietly dealt with through legal channels. The last Amanda heard, he was serving time in prison while Sue Min had moved on to another wealthy man's bed. And Amanda? Amanda finally understood what it meant to be truly loved. Deeply, intensely, unconditionally loved by a man who would burn the world for her safety. It wasn't the life she had planned. It wasn't even close to the life she had imagined when she moved to Seoul 6 years ago. But it was her life. Her choice. Her love. And she wouldn't change a single moment of it. So there you have it, the story of how a hotel worker found her boyfriend cheating, married his uncle for revenge, and discovered that love sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. If this story moved you, touched your heart, or had you on the edge of your seat, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below telling me your favorite part of the story. Was it the revenge? The romance? The action? I want to hear from you. And if you want more stories like this, full of drama, love, betrayal, and those unexpected twists that keep you coming back for more, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.